So I'm trying something new here. I'm going to try and do quick videos on performance analysis and things like that. So this one is with the biggest game of the moment, Ratchet and Clank on the PC, coming from the PlayStation 5. A game that's really going to push technology and hardware hard. At the time I said this about the Insomniac, and I know there's been a lot of talk online, people saying that SSDs and HDs are all lies and it's all going to run on that. I'm hoping to show you an example of just that Sony, Mark Cerny and certainly Insomniac weren't lying when they said this game heavily relies on that SSD and the I/O subsystem. Like I've always said about the PlayStation 5, it's not just the SSD, it's how it handles all that data, takes all that stress away from the GPU, the CPU, and obviously reduces bandwidth compression. This is an excellent port from Nix's. It's very well balanced. It uses all the hardware, top of the range hardware in terms of direct storage 1.2, so GPU decompression. Even Microsoft don't use that on any of their games outside of the Xbox Series X and Series S. So you can't blame Nix's and Sony for not pushing the PC platform very hard. Here though, I'm using what is the mobile version of choice, the Steam Deck. So it's connected up to a TV screen, it's running at 720p, it's pretty much at the lowest settings we've got, which is AMD FSR 2.1. We've got upscale sharpness set to 4, dynamic resolution scaling set to 60, and pretty much everything's set at low. I have set textures to medium and isotropic filtering to 2. And I like a bit of screen space reflections because the materials in this game are cracking. So you do need some materials on there. And as you can see in the menu screen, it's already at 55 FPS. So, with all that said, let's load up a section in the game. I think it's that one. So this is the part where you jump through the portals. So this is the part that's really going to use the data, and you'll have a good example here of what happens when you use an SSD or when you don't use an SSD. So here what I'm using is the SD card in the Steam Deck, and this means that we're streaming from the drive itself. The latency here is far lower than it is on an HD or a hard drive, a mechanical hard drive. But as you'll see here, jumping from the portal, the performance is actually pretty good at this point, 40 FPS at these settings. Again, it's using FSR 2.1, so it's reconstructing back to 720p. It's probably dropping down to 540, maybe even lower, 480p, that kind of level. But as you see here, as we walk through the portal, you'll just get this large hang, and then the frame rate will drop down to the 30s as it streams all this data in, decompressing. Again, using direct storage 1.2 here, so this has got the ability to use GPU decompression. Doubt it's using it here for the Steam Deck at this level. These low settings won't use that. It will still decompress from the CPU. But what you can see here is there's two issues here. One, it's trying to get data from the drive over to the GPU into RAM and then use it, and that causes that delay. And that is a combination of load speed, so bandwidth itself, and obviously power from the GPU to decompress the textures. The actual installation is pretty much identical size to the PlayStation 5, so it's definitely using the same compression techniques and everything is compressed. So it's reduced the bandwidth levels across all pieces of hardware, including the Steam Deck and high-end PC. And again, this is a like-for-like example. Nixes have done an exceptional job importing this title. But as you can see, the portal sections, the streaming, the I/O action, all the things that are I said, many of us said that the PlayStation 5 was delivering, and as Mark Cerny quite clearly detailed in his road to the PS5, and Insomniac said was making the game, and even before this game came out, it needs it. It's not just the SSD, like I keep saying. People just harp on about that, and I've seen people online talking about the fact that, hard drives now, it's all fine, it's going to work. This is a good example. This is far faster than a mechanical hard drive. And you can see the impact it's having here. You've got huge delays. And if it actually just waited for the data to be ready, that would have been, a second or more of a hang. So the fact that they're using the buffering technique here on the direct storage to actually buffer the data from the drive into RAM, and then that little pool of RAM is then passed the GPU over into streaming the data out. That's one of the benefits that's been added to direct storage 1.2. You can actually have a Boolean flag to just say turn that on and off in the menu, and that way you can either stream the data direct from storage straight to VRAM, which is far quicker, but you need obviously a very fast and powerful bandwidth. You need a fast and powerful GPU to do all that work on the fly because there's no buffer, and therefore it's direct one-to-one. So latency will hit you very hard, or delays will if you're slowing it down. If you create a buffer, which is what the flag allows you to do, then mechanical drives can be used here, an SSD on the Steam Deck or an SD card, again, far faster than the mechanical drive. All of that means you'll get slower performance, but you'll get less issues on that latency side, because it basically just waits around for that thread to finish, build up enough of a backlog in that buffer RAM to then start streaming into data, and then that data then can be streamed on. You can see here that texture details, assets are all far lower as expected. Remember, there's no ray tracing here, so this is completely disabled, and that's one of the things that I'll cover more in the full analysis. But again, this happened on Spider-Man Remastered as well. There were issues in terms of the ray tracing on AMD cards, in terms of AMD and Nvidia, but they had more issues on the AMD side, and they had to improve some of those issues. There was definitely bigger problems on the AMD ray tracing, and this is again around that driver side, the hardware side, the configuration side. Remember, the PlayStation 5 has AMD hardware, but it does not use any of the techniques and reconstruction and basically driver side of the AMD that potentially the Xbox does, which is probably one of the reasons why ray tracing doesn't work as well on there. It's completely written within the APIs and the SDK of Sony. So that means that the construction of that is very different to what AMD uses, and again, it's different to what Nvidia need. And Nixes have a lot of experience with Nvidia, and they've worked closely with them, so they've definitely got this working better on Nvidia cards. Again, they are better at ray tracing just because of their RTX hardware. There's certainly the software in terms of how their driver works and how efficient it is within DXR and DirectX 12. So fundamentally, they've just disabled ray tracing on AMD cards. It doesn't affect the Steam Deck because it can't run it anyway using the Linux operating system, but even in the Windows it wouldn't work because it's AMD. As you can see there, it's using screen space reflections and dynamic cube maps. But on the Nvidia side, it works perfectly. You can go above the PS5. You can have ray traced AO, ray traced shadows, again similar to what we saw in Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales. So that means you get better visual quality overall if you have the hardware, and that's one thing I'll cover specifically more in the next video. But this game scales exactly as I expected, just putting aside the SSD and the streaming areas of the title itself. Just from a GPU perspective, it's very demanding, unsurprisingly. It's far more technically demanding than Spider-Man titles because it was completely designed around PS5. It's a current generation title only, so it's a good example of how much additional overhead is needed to get anywhere near to the level of the PlayStation 5. And again, I've said this for years, ever since I started my channel, and hopefully this is the title that's going to reinforce that for many people out there. This is what consoles offer. If you make a game, design an engine and a game specifically around one single fixed function piece of hardware that's designed for games and games only, that has all the benefits the PlayStation 5 offers with its I/O structure, with its memory system, with its GPU and CPU, which are all very powerful, even in the PC space. You know, they're not weak. They're not top end, but they're not weak. But it's more than just that. It's the fact that they offer potential over and above, and specifically the teams can tailor every aspect of that engine specifically to the boosts and benefits of that hardware, as I keep saying over and over the years. And this is the perfect example of that. So hopefully this will be a good benchmark for what people can expect when a game is designed around it. And also it works in reverse. You know, when you get bad ports on... People always think that bad ports only work one way. There's only bad ports on PC. There's bad ports on console as well, because there are some hoops you have to jump through. Contention, like I always say, is one of the big issues. So there's certainly areas there that are better on PC, but it's always a balance. It's always a compromise. And this is a title that's had a lot of effort and work put in, and Nixes have done an exceptional job here in delivering a very stable and very beautiful looking game still. Even without ray tracing, as you can see here, it looks cracking. So they haven't let anyone down, but it is a title that I think will stand out and have legs in terms of benchmarking your PC. It's the first game to really use direct storage properly. It really highlights the benefits it offers and how much really you're going to need in the PC space to get close to what the PlayStation 5 can deliver. Spoiler alert, it doesn't get anywhere close to the quality of the PlayStation 5, even on the top-end hardware that I've got, and faster SSDs, because it's far more than that, as I mentioned on my Spider-Man Remastered reviews. The texture assets and details can take for seconds still to load in, and that's because all of that needs to happen in the background, and the PS5 is designed specifically to do that efficiently and without the overhead on the CPU and the GPU. All of that is kind of taken away from the hardware itself, so it has a better job to push all that through much easier and much better. Anyway, this was a very quick video. I had to edit this again with my voice over the top because I forgot to mute the game and it's far too loud. Apologies. So hopefully I didn't miss out a lot of what I said, but again, I've just done it live. give me your thoughts and feedback on these videos. Are they beneficial? Are they not? Do you like them this way? Is there anything I can do to tweak them? Because one of the problems I have, as everyone knows, is time. I just don't get enough time. And if I can do things like this by editing some shots together, some frame rate analysis, and just condensing it down and talking over the top, it might end up being a better way for me to get things out quicker and more efficiently than just trying to edit everything together and putting all that effort in. So it'd be good to hear what your thoughts and feedbacks are. Do you like it? Was it beneficial? And I'll be back soon with some more views on Ratchet and Clank. And just as an example before I close, this is what it runs like on a far more powerful RTX 2070 fully overclocked, but with a mechanical hard drive. Yeah, enjoy that. Look at the stuttering and issues there. That will reinforce the fact, and that's at 720p, by the way. That's the lowest setting. I've not bumped this up. This is just using the lowest setting, ray tracing turned off. So this is a good example of how impactful it really is, and hopefully reinforces everything that everyone said from the Sony side and the Insomniac side up until this point. And you can point back at this video and say, look, there you go. This is a good example of what it launched like. And hopefully Nixis can work even harder in the background and maybe get even better performance by utilizing all the benefits of the PC space, like I said before, which is pushing more data into bigger pools of system RAM. Remember, you really need 16 gigabytes to run this game well in terms of system RAM. And I'd say 16 gigabyte GPU as well, really, if you want to get close to the PlayStation 5. That's really not going to change in this generation, as I keep saying. It's only going to go up. So expect to rely heavily on everyone running this game on reconstruction and obviously lowering texture details and assets. And if you haven't got a very, very fast subsystem in terms of memory and SSD, PCIe 4, yeah, you're going to have some serious hiccups and judders in this title, as we expected. So if you're one of the people that stood behind and said it's all real and it's not fake, you can pat yourself on the back. And everyone else that said it's all rubbish and hard drives are going to take over and it's all rubbish about SSDs on the PlayStation 5, here you go. Good example of the fact that sometimes, just sometimes, when people say things you don't believe, it doesn't mean they're lying. Anyway, I'll catch you very soon on the next one.